And it is Earth Week here with Sun Radio. I'm Kevin Connor, and my guest is George Altgeld.
That's
George.
correct. Yes.
He is the founder and president of Geo Growers out on Highway 290. And first of all, George, thank you for coming in. And thank you for supporting my Saturday show, A Hill Country Saturday. You're one of our underwriters for that show.
You are so welcome. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. And I know that you grew up way out in the Hill Country, correct?
Well, yes, I grew up in Hallettsville, Texas. That's right where the coastal plains turns into rolling hills.
There you go. And then came into Austin to go to UT, and you know dirt on a biological and molecular level.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Yeah. So what led you to start Geo Growers, first of all?
Well, that's a really a very good question. I was always interested in farming and ranching, having that as a background. But I studied biology at the University of Texas. And what really caught my interest was the molecular reality of biology. And the molecular realm is ruled entirely by the physics of matter itself. And that's when you're really down to it. You're starting with atoms. And let's not forget that, according to Heisenberg, atoms are not things, only tendencies.
So you started Geo Growers when?
In 1995, February.
When we were testing out the mics, George said, I'm George from Geo Growers. We make dirt.
That's right.
Some people think the dirt is just there, but you make dirt.
Right. We take raw ingredients from the cleanest, purest sources. I use a lot of Texas granite from Central Texas. It's the pink part of pink granite is potassium feldspar, and it is magic.
Really? Okay. And then what else? What else goes into your dirt?
We use an organic, certified organic dairy cow manure. And then we're using rice hulls, which have been very carefully tested. And we're so far below any threshold of arsenic that it's almost impossible to register.
Why would there be any in there?
Because rice is it's a farm product that has a reputation from having arsenic in it from past processes of growing it. But these days, it's really not there.
What is the biggest thing that the average homeowner, with trying to maintain a lawn and maybe have a little garden, what is the thing that they really need to know to start off with?
Well, first of all, you don't need herbicides to control weeds in a lawn if your soil has real fertility. The grass itself will outgrow any weeds and choke them out, and you never have to use any kind of poison, exposing yourself to a poison or exposing your kids, your pets, or the aquifer to a poison.
Yeah. So if the right stuff is in the soil that you use, you don't need pesticides.
No, you don't. The grass grows with such vigor, it chokes out any competition from weeds.
Okay. Have the big chemical companies that kind of dominate the shelves of big box hardware stores, are they trying to make better dirt?
No, they're not. They're actually they live on the fact that we're so ignorant of how dirt and soil works that they have to sell us the remedies for all the things that go wrong when fertility is absent.
Yeah. Let's use my front yard as an example, and no photographs, please. It would be embarrassing. But I put the lawn in, and I always remember this. I got a big plat of grass the first year that Tiger Woods won the Masters.
Oh, good timing.
It was pouring rain, which is also good timing to put down sod, right?
Yes.
And I would be out there for a while. Then I'd go in and watch the beautiful course at Augusta and get all inspired and go back out again. But over time, I'm getting bald spots. Is that because of the grass, you think, or is it because of the soil needs enriching? And how do I do that?
Well, you get bald spots in any lawn because the grass is not getting what it needs. And so often the builder has placed the cheapest fill material he can find, which is a material that comes from the pits on the east side, and they are extremely alkaline. 8.8 all the way up to 9.4. If you understand pH, 7 is neutral. And every time you go up 1 point, that's 100 times more alkaline than the previous point. Grasses start to fail for several very clear reasons. One is lack of water holding capacity. And then the interesting thing about alkalinity is it curtails the uptake of trace minerals. And this is where the problems start. Anytime you've got a fungus, the plant is not being able to defend itself because it cannot make the polyphenols required for plant defense.
George Altgeld from Geo Growers. I got some of that. But
Right.
basically,
Right.
I think basically the point is I have not fed my soil. It's really a process that you just can't, start with the dirt you had with the day you moved in and hope for the best. You have to maintain your soil as much as your lawn, right?
Yes, that's correct. And trace minerals are very, very important. That's where the polyphenols come from. But the N, P, and K is also very important. And the interesting thing about lawns within cities is most often, and I've seen hundreds of soil reports as in analysis, the nitrogen is missing and the phosphorus and the potassium are way up there. You go to a big box store, they sell you N, P, and K when what your lawn really needs is some nitrogen.
Okay.
And quite often the nitrogen is the first thing to leave the soil, especially if it's the water soluble nitrogen. It evaporates as a gas, or it leaches downward and winds up in the Gulf of Mexico or in our drinking water. And then you've got an imbalance. And in addition to that, phosphorus builds up to the point of tying up trace minerals.
Okay. How do I test, or any homeowner, how do you test your soil to know what it needs?
Well, the best way is to use a reputable lab, and I always use Texas Plant and Soil Lab in Edinburgh, Texas. If you call Geo Growers, we'll give you the number, and they'll tell you what's available to that plant with a very good analysis, not just, let's take a look at what's there with a very strong acid or reagent. They actually use carbonic acid, which is how the plant would register nutrients or not.
Mm-hmm. Is there still time? I mean, we've had actually a very mild spring overall. Is there still time to do the kind of work you need to your soil at this time of year?
Yes, there is. In fact, the grass is just now getting started up again after the very cold, harsh winter that we had in February.
Yeah.
And yes, you've got plenty of time.
We never really have experienced, at least in the almost 40 years I've been here, something quite as severe as that storm. We've had cold winters, but nothing quite like that.
Nothing quite like that. I remember once in 83, 84, we had 0 degrees in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
And 3 days later, you could have been outside in your short sleeves. That didn't happen this time.
No, it did not happen this time. And I know a lot of people have lost a lot in their gardens and in their just their shrubs, their trees. I'm really worried about one of my post oaks. It's not looking good. But enough about me. I want to make it more about everybody in general. I'm sure that you've been very busy, basically, as people replant their yards. What can they do to make the plants that they get hardier for the next one? Because we could have another bad storm next winter.
Yes, and I would say it's actually pretty likely, given that the sun is receding in its output. We're going to see greater fluctuations in the jet stream, which will bring colder weather further south. This could be a recurring theme, if you will, for winters here in Texas.
Wow. I had not heard that the sun was receding. We're sun radio, we're solar powered. You're making me nervous.
No, don't be nervous. There's plenty of sunshine to run your recharge system. It's the sun's effect on weather has everything to do with its output.
All right. Well, I know that one of the important things for you is to help teach people about the things in their yard and their garden, and especially gardening with limited use of water, because water is going to be a dominant issue for us in this century. That's for sure.
Yes, it is. And that was one of the reasons why I got into the business, because we could use so much less water on our landscapes if the soil would hold water, could make use of every drop of rain. If you had soil that would grab onto it and then release it to the plant's root system as the soil dries out, it's releasing it to the plants rather than draining away below onto a limestone bedrock.
All right. So, and of course, the advice is often, get native plants, get plants that have learned how to adapt themselves over time to our climate.
Yes, it's true. And interestingly, the exceptions to that have been the mountain laurels and the cherry laurels. They really took it hard. I saw a lot of them are just dead. But another surprise for me was to see that all the magnolias survived it beautifully. I didn't see one magnolia tree that was harmed.
Yeah. Bamboo, not native, could be very, very limited now, which is good because it is an aggressive plant that people think, oh, it'll be a nice border. And then it starts
Right,
growing up in their driveway.
right. And so it's pushing through the cracks in the cement. Bamboo is like that. It's invasive.
So what are the biggest mistakes that people around here make when it comes to their lawn and their gardens?
Well, the place I would start with is if you're planting trees, remember this tree did not start from a seed that slowly took over the soil that was available to it. You have a larger tree, and the conventional wisdom is to plant the tree in the soil that came out of the hole. Well, what came out of that hole is rock chips and caliche. Don't plant the tree in that, please.
Get some soil.
Get some soil. We make a geotree mix that the University of Texas uses exclusively for transplanting those huge oaks when they move them from one spot to another.
Uh-huh.
And to date, this is according to the superintendent, they have not lost a tree.
Wow. Yeah, I remember my old friend Tim O'Connor out at the backyard, the music venue. He had to move some trees, and he just made such a great effort to make sure that those trees wouldn't be lost. It would have broken his heart to lose them, and that's a really good thing to know. Just don't trust the dirt that is there in the hole or was the hole.
Sure, exactly. Yeah, we don't have that kind
Yeah.
of soil. The thing to remember about live oaks, you see them growing on a limestone hill,
Yeah,
but you have to remember every live oak started as a small nut that would not give up its ground.
yeah, they fight really hard.
They do.
So,
But to get back to your original question,
yeah,
what would you do? I would make sure that you had a soil going underneath your sod if you're putting in a new lawn that will hold water and provide some fertility. If you have an existing lawn, you want to bring the fertility up. And one of the most important things to do is to add calcium in the form of gypsum, which is an available form of calcium, unlike limestone, which is not particularly available.
right.
And that's going to restore the vigor. And then think about NP and K and take it from organic sources.
Uh-huh. So you spread that on your lawn like compost?
Compost is very good. And that's when you're going to start rebuilding the soil layers.
Okay.
But you want to get it growing first before you put anything on top of the grass. And we have very good organic fertilizers that supply N and P and K from organic sources. But the first thing you want to think about is get some calcium down there, because that's how the plant takes up nutrients, is by available calcium.
I would imagine farmers and ranchers have to understand these things better than us suburban gardeners.
Yes, they do. And I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things that we've been doing is we're bringing revitalization to pastures, and hay pastures in particular. And I'll tell you what got me into it. Not far from Geo Growers is a gentleman who raises Arabian horses. And these horses are extremely valuable. And he lost 2 of them to herbicide residues in the hay.
Oh dear.
And those horses were worth $1 million a piece. Very, beautiful Arabians that were thoroughbreds that ran in 1-mile races, but there are other reasons to have the thoroughbreds. And he got very interested in restoring his pastures and only buying hay from certified organic producers of hay.
Horses are delicate.
They
But
are. They
that,
can't throw up. That's the real
oh,
problem.
really?
Yes.
Wow.
Monogastric.
My goodness.
Yeah, they don't
So,
have four stomachs like cows.
so, so you deal with you know, the suburban gardeners like me, and you deal with ranchers
Yes.
and farmers as well.
Yes.
Okay.
We've got a whole protocol for moving into pasture restoration. The first thing we do is look at what's there, and then we look at the biota to see if we can make what's there available to the grasses that are already growing there.
So I think it's almost human nature that this week, Earth Week, surrounding Earth Day, people pay a little bit more attention to the environment.
Absolutely.
It's you know, and they go, oh, single-use plastic, that's bad, or you know, I shouldn't drive as much as I do. But then they kind of forget about it. It's just human nature. If you could just tell people, number one thing you should be thinking about this week, perhaps as it relates to what you provide at GeoGrowers, what would that be?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that question, because the interesting thing is the consumer has the power. They vote with the money they spend. The dollars in the wallet are votes. And when you start to contemplate the fact that it's the children that really got us interested in recycling, boy, that's like, you know, that's the inside advocate for recycling. Well, all of this is going on around us. The reason why we got the growth hormones out of the milk is because parents started thinking about, why are there sex hormones in milk? And that was because it was sold to the dairies. And the dairies, yes, in the beginning, they got extra milk. But then there's problems that showed up, including consumer backlash. One of the first big signs I saw that this was happening was Borden had a whole billboard dedicated to letting people know that they do not use growth hormones on their dairy cows. It was magic. And that spread across Texas like nothing else. And then, of course, you had the backlash from the folks who supply those hormones. And they're saying, well, you know, we've got to do something about that. And so they had all the milk companies that were hormone free putting on their milk cartons. There's no difference between milk produced with recombinant bovine growth hormone or regular milk. And that rankled quite a few of us consumers. So the next thing you know, Ben & Jerry's ice cream is exclusively using milk that has not been treated with growth hormones. And then, of course, the chemical companies backlash with, well, you're just trying to garner a lot of attention with all that. And then the next thing you know, Ben & Jerry are on a video explaining why it is that they don't use milk treated with hormones. And so Ben is saying to Jerry, yeah, you know, we've been accused of trying to garner attention, but that's not really why. Here's the reason: dead people don't eat ice cream.
So read the label.
Read the label
and know what it means.
Right. And the consumer is what started that. The consumer awareness is what started all that.
Yeah. All right, George. Hey, you used to have one location and you split it into two.
Yes, we leased a piece of property for 18 years, and it was a lease, and it sold. And it got sold to 10,000 pots, and those people were very gracious in extending our lease so we could move out. And we've 10 miles to the west now, we have the soil yard, and that's where we ship from.
Okay. Yeah. So you have two locations on 290.
Yes, we have the original location, which is behind the liquor store on 290. And Karen, who owns the liquor store, has also been very gracious in extending us the property to continue leasing it there. And there we have vegetable plants, we have fertilizers, we have lots of good advice, and you can still bag it yourself right there at the garden center at Cedar Valley.
How do people get it home if they're bagging it themselves?
We supply the bags, the buckets that have the bottoms cut out, serves like a funnel, and then the shovels. And then we've got the piles of the soil that we have been producing for years now. And they can just come there and fill up as many bags as they want. And there's still a bargain out there. If you want a half yard, you get the bulk price, but you got to buy the bags.
Yeah, but a half yard of good, healthy soil isn't going to fit in the trunk of my Honda Accord.
Well, you'd be surprised. We probably could fit it in there and a few on the floorboard.
Okay. All right. It's been a while since I've been out there, but another uh, garden professional recommended one time for me to go to your place, which I thought was cool. And what I find is that the really good ones here in Central Texas, and I'm not saying that there's bad ones, but the really good ones, they're not afraid to send somebody to another location. They miss out on a sale, but I always remember that other guy who just happens to have a show here on Sun Radio on Sunday mornings at 11 o'clock said, go to Geo Growers. They have exactly what you need.
Yes, that would be John Dromgoole, and I
Yeah.
appreciate his recommendations. We've been friends for a long time. He actually worked at the Jungle Store way back in the day, across from Jack's Rome Inn on 29th Street,
Oh,
and
really?
and Guadalupe. Yes. Anyway, that's I used to tell John all the time. One day, organics are going to be mainstream.
Yeah.
And he believed me. And John has done tremendous good things for the organic movement.
And they really are mainstream,
They are.
especially in a community like ours. There seem to be more people, I would think, than in other parts of the country that are really paying attention to it.
Yes, they are. And thanks to everyone that promotes it and votes with their dollars.
Yeah. And the overriding theme, I should say, in all of these conversations I've had the past couple of weeks with people is doing the right thing environmentally or as far as sustainability often turns out to be doing the right thing economically.
Yes, it does.
It helps their business.
Yes, it does. And speaking of economically, the organic industry has increased its market share by 15% every year for the last 30 years. And even though the market is growing, larger and larger portions of that are going to uh, people purchasing sustainable, organic, clean foodstuffs. And HEB has gotten in there in a big way. They've supplied so many different things that are organic. They've got an organic cream that is just fabulous. They outperform that cream they've got. No one's got anything as thick as that pours out of that little carton. It's magic.
Cool. Well, George Altgelt, the founder and president of Geo Growers, thank you for your information and thank you for your support of Sun Radio.
It is a real pleasure to support an outfit like this. You bet.
Thank you.